it was really very good beginning for a writer. The books were very present in our house. I saw from the beginning how my parents are discussing books, reading books, buying books. And I could spend a lot of time with my father in library, which I remember very good, and like here, we have shelves, and the most interesting books for me were always close to the ground, so I explored those shelves very intensively. And I think that was the way I really discovered books as words, as alternative words. Of course, I think on the beginning were fairy tales, many of them, and I do still like fairy tales very much. Even recently I bought a new volume of Brother Grimm's fairy tales, and still I read them as a kind of poetry. But later I think that Jules Verne affected me very much. So I started to think in this way, crossing borders, thinking about another countries, another cultures, traveling. So that was the very strong idea for me. I liked my school, but rather from social reasons, because of my friends and the time spending together. But I was a type of a child who rather prefer self-education. So I had many hobbies, many fascinating subjects like astronomy, for instance. So I really spent a lot of time studying for my pleasure. I remember very well my teacher from secondary school. She was a biologist, and she taught us biology, and she opened my eyes for this beautiful aspect of physical existence of every living beings. Of course, as a very young child, I would be an actress, like every single girl, I think. But later, I expected that the progress of science will be quicker, I think. And then I expected that it will be possible to be a physician, but the cosmic physician. So I was thinking about my future profession as taking part in a cosmic, oh God, how to say, expedition. So I remember myself dreaming about to be a part of a cosmic expedition and work in science, checking how human body is relating with cosmic space. So it was a very fantastic idea. Of course, I think that I overestimated the time of development of science. Now I can realize that this is the same subject in my books. Thank you for this question. I think that it was a good choice to study psychology. Of course, I was tempted by my mother to study literature, even if she knew from the beginning that I wanted to write. But psychology taught me very many important things. I think the most important one that every single human being is the source of a novel. It's a source of many stories. So we are living in a world that, like, more or less 5 billion of stories, novels in potential state existing still around us. But the second reason why studying psychology was a very good choice is that this training as a psychotherapist, taught me how to listen to people, It's a kind of ability you can really train, and then you can be open much more for what the people saying to you. The most influential experience, which really is strongly related to my work, is, I think, this moment I decided to move to the countryside. And then, because I grew up as a child in a countryside, then after big cities and this kind of chaotic life, I came back to the nature, and then I discovered a kind of different state of mind, which was very good for my writing, and gave me a kind of concentration, silence, inner silence. I think that most funny and mysterious thing is creating characters. It looks on the beginning that I am really inventing, because I need a character, a personality to the story, to my story. But in fact, it looks rather like those characters are coming from outside to my story. So they are already existing somewhere. And there are, the first step is that they look rather shapely, only, you know, cloudy, very not in a physical way. But there is another step of this process when I can hear what they are talking between each other, or that when they are talking to me. So this is the best moment in my writing. It must be special, very deep and special connection, relationship between me as a narrator, me as a author, and my characters. And for sure they are taking from me many things, but I'm also I'm learned from them. Sometimes they're surprising me because of something which I didn't know about them. So it's really very mysterious. I'm going to write about it. And of course there are many dimensions of writing, because first of all you need to make a research, or even to invent entire story, to support yourself by another books, another ideas, to talk with people, to make some notes. And then there is a beginning of writing and sculpturing entire story. So it's so many dimensions that it is never boring, really. And I like it, just like it. This is my only one profession. I cannot do anything else, so. There is one, I presume, which is ability to live in a kind of regime. So, kind of regularity in writing, and also, how to say, to manage a kind of management of our time we have to dispose. Mm-hmm. There is no such a book, I think, because first of all, I should ask who is the reader. If it is young or rather middle-aged, woman or man, I don't know, introvert or extrovert. It's quite complicated. But there are some books I like. There are some books of mine I like more than the other, and I think there is still one book which wasn't translated into Swedish. It's called Anna in Graves of the World. It's like a cyberpunk, a little bit old story based on a Sumerian mythology. So this book could be nice for teenagers, for instance. It is also hard to answer, because it depends from in which moment of my life There were many such a fascination of mine on a special kind of writing, special novels. So it's quite fluent, I would say. But for sure, I do belong to this Central European tradition of writing, telling story, and also writing and discovering the language, I would say. And among those writers from Central Europe, I would underline the name of Bruno Schulz, who was very important for me as a Polish writer, writing in Polish, because he did an incredible thing with Polish language. But I also like this kind of parabolic writing, also rooted in Central Europe, like Franz Kafka, for instance. But of course, when I was much younger, as a teenager, I was fascinated by literature of Southern America. I like Russians writer, this kind of realism and irony. So it really, it could be very long answer till the evening. I think that the process already began, but we are still somewhere on the beginning of this process. Once I wrote a book about three women, the mother, grandmother, and the daughter. And I tried to describe their experiences as a really existential. So the human being faced to death and all those very demanding experiencing in our life. And in the Polish, by the Polish critics, this book was described as a saga. Saga, is it good expression? So I was so disappointed, because when they realized that the main characters are women and the author is women, it must be a saga. So sometimes I think that we need not only female writing, but also creating the female characters in literature as a philosophical, ethical subjects, facing towards the most important challenges, contemporary challenges. Then, because when we are thinking about a man, I mean a human being, we still have somewhere on the back of our minds a man, the figure of man. So this one is very important. This should be to be changed. The simplest answer should be connected with place of my growing up, and also on the places where I used to live. And it's always kind of karma, because I was born close to the German border, then I now living close to Czech border, and my family was the part of this big political changing of borders after the Second War. So they were refugees from one part of Poland territory to the other, gained after the Second War. So the story about borders were very present in my childhood and also in my own life. But also this subject is fascinating because from this abstract side. Borders are a challenge for us, but we also feel very deeply the deep need to crossing the borders. It's something, I remember myself living in this small village. There is a still old border in the forest, and I used to take my dogs and went to the forest just for crossing the border, for clear, plain pleasure, for the joy that I am a free person, and the border in fact doesn't exist in a real sense. And of course, especially in Jacob's book, I would like to relate to the previous concept of Poland as a multi-cultural country, as a society speaking many languages, which we completely lost after the Second World. So this is also something deep need to rebuild the old image of Poland. Yes, it is. I do believe that we, all of us, we have somewhere in our perhaps genes or our psyche, we have this nomadic instinct which creates our lives. And even if we are living entire life in one place, so we're still thinking about just crossing those places where we are designed to be. This deep need is also very present in my life. So, writing Flights, I try to write a kind of monography of movement on many levels, from this touristic side, for pilgrimage, for also kind of neurotic, uneasiness to go somewhere, to check somewhere, just to also missing places we've never been before, which also creates our lives in a very visible way. So I would say this book is just monography of movements, literary monography of movements. I'm not the type of activist. I'm too neurotic and too nervous to make a speech to the big group of people. I'm not this kind of fighter. But what I can do, I can invent some ideas. I can write down those ideas. I can create a story which will move another people, like Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. And after this book, many people told me that they became vegetarian. So it's really something. So I'm going to really to do what I'm really can do. This is my small field of my activity. And of course, literature is a very specific way of understanding the world, and very specific and very raffinated, special, sophisticated way of communication. So I would like, in my writing, I would like to try just a kind of general ideas or instruction how to deal with those very dangerous things connected with climate changes. So please understand that I am not activist. This is what I'm going to say. I'm going to write about it in my own language, using my imagination to make our consciousness broader. Oh yes, that was one of the first thoughts after this announcement, and after realizing that I am in a completely different situation right now. So I was always very active in doing something for the small community I used to live, or making some project from another people. And now I have such a possibility. Now I can really do so. We are now writing a stated, or what is the English word? The plan of the foundation. What we are going goals of the foundation, and the main goals will be connected with literature. I mean the small residences for writers and translators, of course. But I'm also very keen to focus on ecology, especially in our small community, in our village. And there are many ideas. Also animal rights, which is very important things for me. It's a complicated question. I know that there are many kinds of studying called creative writing, for instance, and the people then trying to learn how to write and how to live in writing. Because for me, writing is rather a psychological process, not just the process of writing on the paper or even not inventing story, but something which is very deeply connected with our psychological side. So I think that there is only one advice: to read. To read, I think, read and read, and for every single one written page, it is always 1000 pages which should be read.
Jestem. Mam kilka lat. Siedzę na parapecie, wokół mnie porozrzucane zabawki, przewrócone wieże z klocków, lalki o wytrzeszczonych oczach. W domu jest ciemno, powietrze w pokojach powoli studzi się, przygasa. Nikogo nie ma, odeszli, zniknęli. Słychać jeszcze ich słabnące głosy, szurania, echa kroków i odległy śmiech. Za oknem puste podwórze. Ciemność łagodnie spływa z nieba, osiada na wszystkim jak czarna rosa. Najbardziej dotkliwy jest bezruch, gęsty, widzialny, zimny zmierzch i słabe światło sodowych lamp, grzęznące w mroku w odległości zaledwie metra od swego źródła. Nic się nie wydarza, marsz mroku ustaje przed drzwiami do domu, cały zgiełk ciemnienia ucicha, tworzy gęsty kożuch jak na wystygłym mleku. Kontury budynków na tle nieba rozciągają się w nieskończoność, tracą powoli ostre kąty, winkle, krawędzie. Gasnące światło zabiera ze sobą powietrze. Nie ma już czym oddychać. Mrok sączy się teraz przez skórę. Dźwięki zwinęły się w sobie, cofnęły ślimacze oczy. Orkiestra świata odeszła i przepadła w parku. Ten wieczór jest krańcem świata. Wymacałam go przez przypadek w czasie zabawy, niechcący. Odkryłam, ponieważ zostawili mnie na chwilę samą, nie ustrzegli. Jest jasne, że oto znalazłam się w pułapce, zamknięta. Mam kilka lat, siedzę na parapecie, patrzę na ostygłe podwórze. Zgaszono już światła w szkolnej kuchni, wszyscy odeszli. Betonowe płyty podwórka nasiąkły mrokiem i zniknęły. Pozamykane drzwi, opuszczone klapy, zasunięte rolety. Chciałabym wyjść, ale nie ma dokąd. Tylko moja obecność nabiera wyraźnych konturów, które drżą, falują i to boli. W jednej chwili odkrywam prawdę. Nic się już nie da zrobić. Jestem.